we're talking about trauma-informed care, or this idea that trauma really is the most important thing to know about a person, which I really hate. That we lead with our trauma, that our trauma is the most important thing any caregiver should know about us, any teacher, any spouse, any practitioner of any kind. They need to know about your trauma before they know about anything else. But there is a value in the moment. Hi, I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello, hello in UK Health Radio land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here with my friend,
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna. And we're the team that hosts the New Life Perspectives radio show, and also the pair that created the incredible Cognomovement system. Oh my gosh, you guys, some amazing things have been happening within our system lately. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It really is some incredible work. But let's get on to the topic for today, Bill McKenna. So there's this kind of a, what do you call it? A term that's been going around a lot lately. Everybody's throwing it around, from TikTok to therapists. It's trauma-informed care. Now, trauma-informed care, if you look up the meaning, according to the University at Buffalo, UB School of Social Work, trauma-informed care is an approach in the human service field that assumes that an individual is more likely than not to have a history of trauma. Trauma-informed care recognizes that the presence of trauma symptoms and acknowledges the role trauma may play in an individual's life, including service staff. I don't know why it includes service staff. That's a weird piece of that information.
People actually, the way I interpret that is the caretaker and the person being cared for, both having trauma.
Yeah. So really, it's another way of saying that people have their reasons. That's an NLP term, but that every person has had an experience that they perceive as trauma in their life. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. It's amazing. Kind of the first thing that hits me is that we never think about that. We only think about really our own trauma, or, then there's the people closest to us. But you see your people, in the grocery store walking around, you don't really think, hey, that person's been through it. For the most part, they're just getting their groceries, they're doing their thing, filling up their gas tank, what have you. But really, we don't think, that person that I passed by in the mall is actually traumatized as well. So it's kind of a mind expanding. I like the term that I heard once. There's a war going on inside of everyone that you know nothing about.
It's so true. I was working with an amazing, amazing human the other day with Cognomovement and Cognomovement session. And she said, on this side, and she pointed to her left, I'm a fraud. I'm worried every day that people are going to find out I'm a fraud. And on the other side, and it's interesting because the side that she was pointing to was a wall of awards, literally a wall of awards. This is an amazing human. And on the other side, I've accomplished some incredible things, right? So talk about a war going on inside a really, really proactive and very, very successful human. People think it's not the people that are the most successful that have these problems. It's all, those who aren't successful, don't have any money, don't have any fame, aren't good looking, those are the ones with all the problems. It is really not true. It's every human has things that feel like they're an impediment to moving forward, or on the opposite side, things that really push them. One of my favorite stories is this story Oprah shared many, many years ago. And it was about a young woman who, her mom was basically a prostitute for drugs. And she lived in this house with, people coming and going. It was a flop house, essentially. And she was very, very smart. And she would basically sleep on the train overnight and do her homework on the train in New York City. And she would take a shower at school. And she went and graduated from Harvard. So this,
Wow.
yeah, isn't that amazing? So this is one of
Wow.
those people that her trauma propelled her forward. So either is available. But I think what trauma informed is talking about is the negative side, that almost like you can expect someone to be acting out of their trauma, not out of their wins. Does it feel like that's what's being said to you?
You know, yes, and that it is involuntary, that they are operating out of those, and that it's across the spectrum of everyone. Everyone is affected, and I like the way that you put it. One of the benefits of being you and me is that we get to work with every level of society, where the people that have been homeless or actually are homeless, all the way to economically billionaires and the Hollywood, movie stars and that sort of thing. We've gotten from Olympic athletes to just really your average mom and dad or kid out
Kids,
there.
yeah.
So we got to see this firsthand, and the actual interface where you see kind of behind the curtain, of these ultra wealthy, that what they do. They have issues just like all of us.
Yeah, it's really true. Everybody has their reasons. In NLP, this is one of those things that it took me 30 days to really grok this. As they say, people have their reasons. And really what it means is that every experience you've had, and with Cognomovement, we think about this differently. Trauma is an experience that you had just like any other experience. It's just one that your nervous system attached itself to. But it assumes that everybody has a different perspective, a different trajectory of their life. You were born in San Diego. I was born in Southern California. My family moved to Oregon. Yours stayed in San Diego. You jumped out of airplanes and flew airplanes. I just flew airplanes, right? Everything that happened in our lives creates the lens in which we see today. So my reasons for really having this whole trauma-informed and trauma-focused paradigm that we're having in life right now, having that be my pet peeve and yours would be completely different based on our life experience. So people have their reasons for everything that they do. And I think the second part of that sentence is that they're not always about you. Almost never are they really about you. They're about that war that you're talking about that's going on. So the reason it's one of my pet peeves really is that there's a whole other aspect of life that could be focused on, just like my client, a whole wall of awards that somehow in our vernacular now, somehow in our society now, have less value than the things in her life that were not so great. So my question is, why? Why? Why does it have to be less important? In Cognomovement, we flip that on its head. We change that. But in thinking about this, Bill McKenna, it made me ask this question. And I'll ask it to you directly and answer it as honestly as you can. You've shared before that you had childhood trauma, things with your dad. If I could wave my magic wand and literally take that part out of your life, literally remove it from your life, as though it never happened, would you take that deal?
Well, the wording of what you said, as if it never happened. Now, I'm going to make a two-part answer. The first part is, if I'm going to take it away, that it actually never happened, right? I had a time machine and a magic wand, and that actually never happened. And my first answer is going to be no. And with that, the reason I say no is because I was able to profit from that. I would have never known what I know today without experiencing. You never really understand something until you actually experience it yourself. There is no substitute. You can't really understand it fully. And that's the first reason I wouldn't. But the second reason is that because of the experience and understanding, that was the catalyst for so much evolution and understanding, and an ability to understand it in others and help them out of the hole. So that's the first answer. The second answer is okay. Well, let's say, as if it never happened, you would offer me the ability to neutralize it, meaning I still know it happened, but I literally can't feel anything about it anymore. I know it, I understand it, all those things. Now that deal right there, I'm going to say yes to that. I'm going to say yes.
That's just cheating because you know the answer. But the question...
Cheat? I did not cheat.
You're cheating. You know the answer. So the question really is, if you would delete that trauma out of your life as though it never happened, like it literally somebody cut and pasted it out, your answer is no. And I think that most people would give that answer. I would too. I was thinking about it myself, and I didn't have childhood trauma. However, classic childhood trauma, but each of us does through experience. I found that my core limiting sensation, and remember I said that there are things that push us, drive us forward, and things that limit us. My core limiting sensation or experience was my mom saying I was ridiculous when I was 4. Something I was saying probably seemed quite ridiculous to her. But to my little system, that was an injury, right? That carried with me until I discovered it in 2021. So each of us has those things. But if I think about the biggest problem area in my life, the thing that hurt the most, the thing that, in so many ways shattered the life I was living at that time, would I delete it? And I've gone back in time 1,000 times. I've talked about this with my husband. Would I avoid that time? And like you, actually, my instant answer is yes, because it was so painful. But my secondary answer is, if I did that, I wouldn't have ended up here on this call with you, Bill McKenna, on this radio show. I wouldn't have been part of this magnificent work that we created that is helping so many people. So I think what each of us is saying, and I think what we hear again and again, is in a lifetime, these experiences do have value. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, yeah, and gosh, I totally get it. That instant answer of like,
Mhm.
oh hell, I could have not done that.
Mhm.
Woo, that sounds like really good on the surface, right? We're all trying to avoid pain and to work towards pleasure. That's just the human condition.
Yeah, it's really too. Let's take our first break. And when we come back, I want to go back just a little bit in time for you personally about your experience, your childhood trauma. And there was a period in time in which it did drive you forward in a different way. So let's continue that conversation about how it has value from a certain perspective, and now maybe not so much. So let's hear from the good folks at the UK Health Radio Network. UK Health, take it away. We're back. We are talking about this phrase that people are using called being trauma informed. And this discussion is about the usefulness of trauma in our lives and ultimately the ability to change it, to delete it. But there was a period in your life in which you believed it fueled you. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, well, if I can only answer what actually, happened. Uh, and mine, uh, my trauma, uh, I guess one of the aspects was that I felt like nobody's going to do it. There's no backup, and that was my perspective, that you're going to do this and it's going to be you. And by the way, you're going to have to fight for it. So, so, I was particularly aggressive and angry, and also, I was working literally since, my very first job was getting cookies. I would ride my tricycle down the boardwalk and knock on every door and ask for cookies. So around the neighborhood, I was a salesman selling people on getting cookies, and then on and on. But I had done every conceivable job that one could do. I was pretty much employed since I was, you know, maybe I think, somewhere around the 7 or 8 years old, which today, they don't do those things anymore. But it was fueling me not only as far as, financially, but it also just to achieve things. So I had a lot of things that for whatever reason, I just felt very motivated to achieve, whether it was, in aviation or martial arts or financially or status symbols of, different kinds, stuff like that. Just I could not really help it. It just kind of was.
Yeah. So for you, I know you share in the book, The Only Lesson, which is Bill McKenna's book about his early life. If you haven't read it, you should get it. It's a really great little book. And so you share that it fueled you. Your anger fueled you
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
So it had a resource for a while. And people could say you definitely achieved some success until you learned that it wasn't the thing you wanted to do with your life. Is that fair enough to say it wasn't how you wanted to live your life?
Um, it's the funny. It actually, uh, it wasn't even a choice. I can honestly say that I, in the early part of life, it wasn't a choice. It was just how I was. It was my very nature. And then after the awakening, again, not really a choice. It just simply was. And So as I like to, borrow the phrase, from service to self to service to others. And, I could not quite help it. And Liz, obviously, joining forces where bringing different things to the table to actually make that happen and take what we know and what we discover globally to help people to overcome their traumas, and where they literally don't feel it anymore. They still have the experience, but they don't feel it. And hence, the lens at which they look at life through is completely different. I I went as an example when, I talk about it in the book, uh, but I think it was even post book that I had the realization. I looked at myself, as a survivor, a, overcomer of obstacles and hardship. And that was simply a perspective. But once the trauma was processed, the trauma was processed, and with that, forgiveness becomes inevitable, because if you can't feel it, you don't care. You're like, hey, you know what? It's easy for me. But my story went from hardship to seeing an equally true, different story. And the different story of being a privileged little expletive, a privileged little guy who got to take all kinds of lessons, junior lifeguard program, swimming. I went to camp. I went to, private schools all the way through university. I went and did all kinds of adventures, you know, uh, every possible thing that you could think of, whether it was in education or athletic or different stimuluses of going different places, and, being in the Boy Scouts, or, having different experiences offered opportunity to discover many different aspects of life was afforded me. And so it was just a very different perspective than I looked at life through the lens of trauma.
Yeah.
Yes, things are so hard for you, and oh, you're a victim, and I was like,
Wow.
wait a second, no, it's not. Well, I guess you could say it was true, but you know what? Equally true, I had the best Christmases. I had Thanksgivings, which were, they would challenge the best stuff that you've seen on Dr. Seuss, the roast beast. What was that? Dr. Seuss,
Yeah.
or was that Fatu Foray,
Yeah, I think that's a Dr. Seuss.
yeah.
So this is my whole point of this conversation, is that um the problem is that the trauma part, or the bad part, the experience that wasn't great, so in your case, some situations with your dad, outweighed and became more important than the fact that you have an amazing mom. Like, we know her, she's amazing. She made
Yeah.
these great Thanksgivings. You had a privileged life. So with this trauma informed care, the idea is, and maybe not the intention, the idea is that everyone should focus on that the reason people are doing things are because of the trauma in their life, and their bad behavior is now becomes not necessarily acceptable, but very explainable. And it's the thing we focus on. What I would love people to hear today is that there is another side to your life, and you can make a choice. Making a choice is harder, but you can also do cogno movement to actually get to that choice, where it becomes a really easy choice to make, to focus on the things that fueled you in your life, that are amazing. We miss them so often because our society focuses on trauma. It has become a god in a lot of our lives, and especially more recently. You know, you don't like the president, so if you're in college, let's set up a room for you to cry about that. You know, you don't like what's happening in, I don't know, Botswana. It's okay for you to throw a fit and burn something down because you're traumatized. So I think it takes away our choice a little bit when we're very, very focused on the negative and we're not focused on the wonderful things. In NLP training with Linda Gale Campbell, NLP Pacific here in the Northwest, we did a thing called the timeline treasure hunt. And I hated it, Bill McKenna, hated it. And later realized why. The timeline treasure hunt was you create a timeline. There's a thing called timeline therapy in which you walk through the time in your life. And we were supposed to put down these sticky notes on the places in our life where someone really helped us get to where they are. Man, in the beginning of that, I was like, no one ever helped me ever. No one ever helps me. No one's on my side. Right? I hated it. I hated the idea of painting gold onto a turd. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't want to do it. But it was the best thing I ever did in my life. And I think it was the moment that I realized what we would do later, years later in Cognomovement. I realized in that moment that it started when I was a tiny, tiny kid, 5 years old, in kindergarten. I would forget my show and tell. And so they would have me sing a song or tell a story, right? Public speaking, right there, you know? First grade, hey, how about you sing this song on stage? Okay. Public speaking, public demonstration. I mean, this is what we do daily, right? I found in the strangest of places, the people and the things that literally built who I am and what I would eventually do with my life in the most magnificent ways. And, you know, Bill McKenna, they were tiny. They were tiny moments, right?
Yes.
Things. And gathering those, as much as I hated that exercise, in the end, opened my eyes to how much I really had experienced good things, right? And so I want to acknowledge that some things are so terrible that they do seem to overshadow a life. But there's something now that we do about that, right?
Yes. Yeah. The just exactly like my life experience was being able to see them. They're not even visible. If you were to, you know, when I was 20 years old or whatever, and you told me, oh, you're a privileged little expletive, you know, I would have straight up punched you in the face. You know, I could not see it. I could not see it. But, you know, it's so easy to see once you literally don't feel the way that you once felt about your trauma.
So let's insert this here. At Cognomovement, we understand that a trauma, or the thing that is labeled a trauma, is an experience that comes with a feeling, right? It's not happening now, it happened then. Experience that comes with a feeling that then creates a driver towards or away for something. And in many cases, it becomes automated. So continue on there so everybody has that understanding.
This is a really important understanding, because what Liz is talking about is that it's your actual nervous system that has an automated response. I did not know. I really just simply didn't understand that my anger was an automated response. My nervous system, get up in the morning angry, go to bed at night angry, you know, and not understanding that there was really anything that you could do about that. that it's just at a certain point, it just becomes your demeanor.
And you're justified, right?
Yeah. It is so justified because you know what? When you're at those levels of maybe it's fear and anxiety, like, hey, you know what? I'm afraid, but I'm actually smart. You're a little bit stupid. And the reason you're stupid is because you're the one who's going to be victimized. I'm just aware. I'm very aware that there's a threat. So I need to either get angry about it or hide or whatever be the case so that I don't become victimized. Now, the amazing thing is it's that your nervous system can relinquish it. It can let go of the automated response. And with that, the strangest things happen, that not only do you start to see a different reality about yourself, others in your life, but reality begins to bend to that. It is shocking. It is so shocking to go from, children running and hiding when you walk in the room, that they're like, they can feel your anger and they're like, oh, time to go, to, the joy and the laughter, and they, people want to be around you. And it's just a new reality emerges that matches that feeling. Everybody here has a friend or somebody they know that's like, you know what, we could hang out. You and me, we could hang out because they're so fun and gregarious and, different things, or they're engaging in some way, shape, or form. Well, that's it. They lead a different life. That's their life. And it's a reflection of what's going on with their automatic responses in this nervous system.
It's true. Let's take our second break here. And when we come back, let's talk about, just for a minute, the value of the response that trauma creates in the moment. And how it has value in that moment. We could argue that, till the end of days, but what value does it have in your life today, that singular moment? So for now, let's hear from the good folks at the UK Health Radio Network. UK Health, take it away. And we're back. So we're talking about trauma-informed care, or this idea that trauma really is the most important thing to know about a person, which I really hate. That we lead with our trauma, that our trauma is the most important thing any caregiver should know about us, any teacher, any spouse, any practitioner of any kind. They need to know about your trauma before they know about anything else. But there is a value in the moment. In our most recent Cogno Conscious seminar, somebody said, my anger saved my life. So in a traumatic moment where you're being attacked, your nervous system does something that's really valuable. What's that, Bill McKenna?
Well, it is going to generate a signal which is going to try to protect you. Now there are cases where you need that. It sets up that adrenaline, so you can run faster, you can, you're more focused, so you can get away, that sort of thing. But here's the bugaboo. The bugaboo is, have you ever seen somebody who simply misinterprets stuff? They get angry and you're like, hey, that person over there, they didn't mean any offense. Why are you so, you're ruining your day. You're ruining my day, by, wanting to really rip into it. And, there's obviously a spectrum of possibilities, ending on one side, ending up with law enforcement showing up, and on the other side, just, some kind of nasty looks or whatever be the case. But it's not, it's really an inability to really decipher the truth when we're in that. Not that it's, it is in fact more discernible when you're absent your trauma. You have the ability to discern a real threat, and without that, you lose your discernment. Everything can be interpreted through that lens. And that's if you're listening to this, that this can be extraordinarily difficult to be around.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's the thing that people use as their reason. People have their reasons to not do what they want in life, to not have what they want in life, to not know what they want in life, right? I can't because I'm depressed because I had a trauma. I can't because I'm anxious because I had a trauma, right? So we know that initial impact of the thing that had your nervous system being in fight or flight is the thing that plays out in the greatest focus, I think, in some bodies. And that's what you're talking about, Bill McKenna, those people that are super reactive, that just get angry at a drop of a hat, or even those people that you can't really have a relationship with because their feelings are hurt constantly.
Yeah.
No matter
right?
what you say, like they just can't get it. They just feel like you're hurting them constantly. So this is the part where cognitive movement comes in, because what it is that your nervous system is constantly playing out or reacting to that trauma or that experience that your body is assigning as bad or negative or a reason to be in fight or flight. And this is so important. It's that your body decided to be in fight or flight about it, and that informs your mind how to think about it. So now maybe it's 30 years, 40 years later, and your body's still reacting in fight or flight as though that moment were happening now. And it's wildly unresourceful. If you're one of those people who just cannot hold on to a relationship, this may be what's happening in your body. Your body's reacting to an old story, something that's not happening right now. I'm not talking about a situation that's happening this minute or you're not safe right now. That's a real threat that you need to be in fight or flight over and you get yourself out of it, right? I'm talking about the thing that you point to in your past that is the cause of all your issues, that one moment in time. So it's a body constantly looking for things that are similar. So a person whose feelings are hurt all the time, their body's reacting in an automated way to something that feels very similar to that first injury. So how the body felt the first time around. So like for me, even though my whole life has been, in speaking or singing or performing or publicly being on camera, many times there would be a sensation of holding back, or not exactly fear, but that idea that maybe I'm being ridiculous. So it prevented me from doing a lot of things, going after a lot of things, and it spurred me towards some. When I discovered it and deleted that moment in time, that situation of I'm ridiculous, it flatlined. It doesn't exist anymore. Now it allows me to do whatever the heck I want and feel good about it. I get to decide from my present moment in time. And this is what becomes available when you know how to neutralize that initial trauma. So I asked the question in the beginning, would you be willing to let go of that trauma as though it never happened? And you cheated and jumped ahead to what's really available, is that it can be turned off in the body. Not all the experiences, not all the ways that it made you grow, not all the things that actually do and end up in having some value, because people are resourceful. and they make different decisions and they move forward and they change their life and they learn and grow based on things that happened to us in our past. And then there becomes a time when that has no more resource, the feeling around it, the fight or flight. And Cognomovement is a tool that neutralizes it. So what does that mean to neutralize it, Bill?
Well, neutralize it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Well, the physical events, the historically, we know that to be the case. But what it means is that your nervous system basically lets go of the glitch, that part of it that creates a feeling in your body and also the thoughts around it. Without the feeling that is generated by the nervous system into the body, without that, we don't think thoughts that are equal to that bad feeling. So when that happens, literally, we don't really feel anything about it. And we also open the door to new perceptions. I had one other little comment about this that I realized. And this is, I think, really key, is that I never associated my traumas with who I was. I was just like, listen, I'm an angry little shit and I, self-interested, and that's just how it is, and I didn't know. Here's the thing. If you're depressed, if you're angry, if you're afraid, if you're ashamed, if you feel these anything on the spectrum of not so good, it's an automatic reaction that somehow, some way, there was some traumatic thing that happened in your life and you just forgot about it. When things happen to you physically in a traumatic situation, the bruises, the scars of it, basically fade into the background. You don't physically feel it anymore. It's over with. But who was that Irish singer, Sinead?
Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor, the wounds that don't heal with time or age. And you don't recognize that those are there. You're just living your life in going from one thing automatically. And it's just kind of I'm generally surly. I'm generally depressed. I'm generally don't have energy, generally worried. That's kind of how it presents.
Yeah, it's really true. There are lots of times when people don't exactly remember the trauma on the surface, but maybe in session they'll realize it was something that happened to them at 1 year old, or something that happened in their life, like a move for children can be so traumatic, or somebody bullied you on the playground, right? And it's this feeling. It's a sensation that feels like it is you. The woman I was working with the other day said, so interesting because the fraud part feels like it just is me. And the hero part, the part where she's done such amazing things, feels sort of untrue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though she has proof that she did all those good things. At the end of the session, the fraud part, the feeling that went along with that, it wasn't really an idea, it was a feeling. It was gone. And she said, now it feels so much more like all the amazing things I have accomplished and the people I've helped and the things I've done to serve my community. She creates millionaires, by the way. The lives she's changed. All of a sudden, that became the truth. It took center stage in her life. And it was so amazing to see because she just looked like She was shining. She was beaming. But all that happened was that old feeling, the feeling of fraud that was from somewhere in her life in the past, the sensation of it, that constant sensation, was just turned down or off. That's it. It's that simple. So I think with Cogno Movement, one of the things that's most important to me, Bill, is that people have that choice. The understanding of, oh, this is just my nervous system responding to something that happened in my past. It's a sensation. It's not the current truth, and it can be turned off. It becomes choice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And imagine that for yourself. Imagine that for yourself, that you could actually do that. You could actually do that. It is very real. And, I used to think, God, you got to be stronger. You gotta be really mentally disciplined somehow, kind of like, physically feeling like it's a push-up, in order for that. And it seems nearly impossible at a certain point. But, the amazing thing that we had discovered is that you actually just allow yourself to feel how you feel, and you do particular physical exercises and movements, and your body lets go.
Yeah. Until now, we did not have access to our nervous systems to make real-time change. And with the Cogno Movement system, I think that's the biggest thing we created, you and me, Bill McKenna, is instant access to the nervous system and to create change. We have like the IKEA key. Have you ever built an IKEA thing? And it comes with this little, it's like an Allen wrench, but it's very specific to IKEA. And it's the key that changes everything. I think that's the biggest thing that we created, is the ability to make those adjustments in the nervous system, to stop the automated unwanted response, and to turn on some really wanted automated responses, like the ability to recognize the good things. So way back in the day when I did that, treasure timeline with Linda Gill, I really didn't like it at all. But today, oh, I love it. Today, we've been able to turn on parts of our nervous system that actually recognize wonderful things. The cool part about it is you start to become a match to those things. When your system is seeking out the next cool thing, you guys have heard me say the next shiny thing, your life gets better and better. You notice more and more cool things that are happening right now. The ability to love the people that love you gets greater and greater. It's amazing. So we've seen people, change their relationship with money, with food, with work, with religion, with relationship, with marriage, with friendship. I mean, and it goes on and on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's really no end to it. Here's a weird one is, and Liz is extraordinarily talented at this. Guess what? It even has something to do with your athletic performance.
Yeah.
Or your ability, literally your balance, physically, your gait, your balance, your athletic ability, what you can physically do and not do. It seems crazy, but even lifting your arm, the people who have problems lifting their arm, you literally, once this is processed, all of these different physical functions start operating differently. Your body is very much connected to what hasn't worked and has worked in your life.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's because it's all the same system. Your central nervous system runs your emotions, it runs your movement, and it shockingly runs your thoughts. And most people don't realize that, but it is the resulting thoughts that you come up with are based on what your nervous system is doing. So, Bill, we've done it once again. We've run up against the end of the show. So thanks for this conversation. It was a lot of fun. If you want to know more about us, about Cogno Movement, go to cognomovement.com. You can watch our faces on the Cogno Movement YouTube channel. And anywhere that you like to listen to podcasts, just put in hashtag wellbeing podcast, and you can listen to this anywhere outside of the UK Health Radio app as well. So until next time, be safe and be well. Thanks, Bill McKenna.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.